Hi, welcome to Second Earth Alternative. This is Felipe Osorio. Wow, what can I say about this one? So basically, the Navy has been, I don't know if caught is the right word, but certainly new documents have unveiled through the Patent Office that seems to indicate that the Navy has the knowledge, if not the knowledge, possibly the capability of making UFO crafts. So basically, when you were listening to Luis Elizondo, the man who claimed to be a former Pentagon official, arguably by some, if this man was telling the truth, well, he was saying that the fighter pilots were encountering crafts that basically had engineering abilities that were unknown to modern science. Well, according to this patent, that may not be the case. If I were to just jump ahead real quick in this article and scroll down over here, it states, the patent was first applied on April 28, 2016, over a decade after the Nimitz carrier strike group encountered strange tic-tac shaped aircraft, and nearly a year after Navy pilots across multiple squadrons flying out of Naval Air Station Oceana and NAS Norfolk experienced a string of bizarre encounters with unidentified aircraft, some of which, like the tic-tac, seem to possess exotic performance capabilities. So the point I'm trying to make here is the future is here, guys. According to these documents, this exotic technology is actually not so exotic at all. It's been around, at least according to here, since 2016 when they first had the patents. However, there were strange encounters that happened with the Nimitz decades earlier. So the question is did the Navy pilots encounter something that was extraterrestrial, or were they encountering something that was more related to a technology that we just hadn't seen yet? And it's not surprising that it would come from the Chinese, because they are one of the lead drone making companies in the world. So UAVs as drones are also identified in unmanned aerial vehicles. They kind of got the market with DJI, essentially having the best artificial intelligence related to these drones. I don't know if you guys know this, but some of these drones remember geographically the locations that they're at, the obstacles that they've gone around, and if they're to get lost, they just kind of backtrack the exact location in 3D space. It's pretty revolutionary at the time when you compare it to other drone makers. But one thing that I found so interesting about this is, first of all, this patent is coming from the Navy. And it's something that, if you caught my last episode, I was kind of clear about this point, that the naval intelligence seemed to be in more direct relations to the documentation of the sightings and perhaps the training of individuals who deal with this type of technologies. And it says here, docs show Navy's got UFO patents. So that is the title of the article. So I just want to read a few things about this article so you guys get a sense of what's going on here. The United States Secretary of Navy is listed as the assignee on several radical aviation technologies patented by aerospace engineers working at the Air Warfare Center aircraft divisions. One of these patents described a hybrid aerospace underwater craft claimed to be capable of truly extraordinary feats of speed and maneuverability in the air, water, and outer space alike, thanks to a revolutionary electromagnetic propulsion system. Electromagnetic was always one of the forces that was being proposed for possibly generating lift in the aircrafts. It's something that we also mentioned in a lot of different episodes. Not something that's new. I would give more credit to somebody like Dr. Michio Kaku, who had, in his book Physics of the Impossible, had classified all these future civilizations and had mentioned that a class 2 civilization is being able to control gravity. And his primary explanation was basically to use Earth's electromagnetic field and create a counter-repellent electromagnetic field to that. So this is not exactly a new idea, but making it feasible in a patent certainly is. And the reason why this is such an important story is, if you study UFO research, oftentimes skeptics will fall back on the idea that, well, this can just be military crafts. And it appears that today that is kind of the case. Now, the people who really were aware of the UFO research, they weren't crazy about this explanation, because what about the sightings that happened in the 1900s before even airships were invented? What happened with the 1600 sightings in Nuremberg, Germany? What happened with all the Renaissance paintings that seem to indicate UFOs? And what about the UFOs that were witnessed over the White House in 1952, in which the CIA then created a Robertson's panel to study that wave of UFOs, which we then uncovered in our last episode through the CIA's own documentation that the 1953 Robertson's panel was set up by the CIA. So although, yes, this can be military technology, that wasn't always the case. But today, it appears that we've reached that dreadful day where it's only, you know what it feels like? It feels like that new deep fake thing where people can create like videos of politicians and can fake whatever's happening. And if you think about it, it's kind of scary under the context that the media has been caught lying so many times. Because now the authoritative source of the mainstream media, which has been, for the most part, more fake news than a lot of independent investigative journalists, well, they now have the ability to manipulate video in such a format that they can create a news story as the authoritative force. It can be propelled to the front of other information sources with the help of YouTube, for example. And then what happened if they include a deep fake video in there? I mean, everybody saw what happened with the Covington kid. I mean, there is a huge litigation happening with that because the news had essentially fabricated a story, and they endangered somebody who was essentially a minor. So just to give you a sense of the type of future that we're coming across. So in this case, it seems like forever on, from this day forward, anything that we see that seems to be outside of our conventional explanation, there will always be now a conventional explanation for it. It's kind of sad because it's going to make our research a lot more difficult, but it's also exciting in the sense that we are, as a civilization, reaching new boundaries, a new reality where things that were once considered to be science fiction are literally meeting us at our front steps. So to try to explain this further, what this is happening here, what they're claiming is there was this wondrous invention by Dr. Salvatore Cesar Pais. So it says here, little information can be found about Salvatore Cesar Pais. He has virtually no web presence. What is known is that he received a PhD in mechanical and aerospace engineering from Case Western Reserve University in 1999, and that he currently works as an aerospace engineer for NAVCOD at Naval Air Station Patuxent River in Maryland, the Navy's top aircraft test base. Pais had published several articles and presented papers at American Institute of Aeronautics and aeronautics conferences over the years, describing his work in electromagnetic propulsion, revolutionary room temperature superconductors, in topics like his PhD dissertation, bubble generation under reduced gravity conditions for both co-flow and cross-flow configurations. Now, I'm not going to try to get too wordy with what that means, because even I don't know what that means. But to try to break it down as best I can, it says here, bubble generation under reduced gravity conditions for both co-flow and cross-flow configurations. Now, I'm going to take a swing here and guess that this co-flow and cross-flow configuration is referring to electromagnetic fields interacting with each other, and that in doing so, you can create different bubbles or pockets of reduced gravity. If there's a physicist who knows more, please correct me if I end up being incorrect with this. But what I did find interesting was I found this article, and it says here, a mathematician has proposed a way to create and manipulate gravity. Now, this was published in January 2016. However, according to this article, it says here, generating artificial gravitational fields that could be switched on or off at will is a question captured or left to science fiction. So it seems that according to this article, this technology that's being proposed by patent from the naval offices, it's doing something that a lot of physicists or scientists, at least in 2016, were thinking was science fiction. Going further with this, I went ahead and I went and researched, what does high frequency gravitational wave generators do? Because that's what he claims he has. And if you saw the Bob Lazar episode, what's so interesting is Bob Lazar was claiming that one of the main things that he was working on was a gravity generating device way back in the 80s. I feel like almost like I need to bite my tongue a little bit here, because we need to ask the question very fairly. Was Bob Lazar encountering a very, very prototype beginning of this technology, and that he was used in some way as psyops? It's something that Tim Pool brought up that I kind of right away said no, that there's no way this is possible. But then this document comes out a couple days later, which seems to indicate that yes, the Navy now has the ability to create gravity under small scales. So this kind of put me against the fence in the sense that now I feel like the research that I've encountered in my mindset towards the research has to shift a little bit. I don't know if Bob Lazar encountered something which was just a prototype technology of what we're seeing right now, or if it was alien technology, and that this technology is actually something that either caught up to alien technology, or perhaps at some point was inspired by alien technology. Now, people have been working on this stuff for a while. I think even back in the 70s, they're already using electromagnetics to create counter-repellent fields. So I can't say that all of it came from alien technology. I'm just trying to be as open as I can to the topic. But what I did find so interesting about this article about Google patents, where it talks about high-frequency gravitational wave generator, the inventor, of course, is Salvatore Pais. Well, it says here, a high-frequency gravitational wave generator, including a gas-filled shell with an outer shell surface, microwaves emitters, sound generators, and acoustic vibration resonant gas-filled cavities. The outer shell surface is electrically charged and vibrated by the microwave emitters to generate a first electromagnetic field. The acoustic vibrational resonant gas-filled cavities each have a cavity surface that can be electrically charged and vibrated by acoustic energy from the sound generators, such that a second electromagnetic field is generated. So if you didn't catch that, basically they kind of electrified the outer shell, which was then able to create a field. Now, to create an electromagnetic field inside that electromagnetic field, they used acoustic properties that were able to essentially create its own electric potential already inside the already created electromagnetic field, essentially creating two electromagnetic fields next to each other. At least that's what I got from this. The true acoustic vibration resonant gas-filled cavities are able to counter-spin relative to each other to provide stability in propagating gravitational field fluctuations are generated when the second electromagnetic field propagates through the first electromagnetic field. Wow, okay, so I'm going to just kind of take a guess here and say that what's happening is he is creating true counter-electromagnetic fields where they are essentially repelling against each other, and in this repelling surface there seems to be gravitational fluctuations. I've only read the abstract, and but that's as far as I'm understanding this. I would really like physicists to be able to comment on this, because really physics is not my number one field. I actually studied psychology, so if somebody knows more about this, please let us know. What I found so interesting is that Bob Lazar did talk about how part of what he believed to have been creating the force for the UFOs, he talked about like a lapse in gravity field that happens between the weak nuclear force and the gravity of the atom itself. But it feels like the principles that are being related to this specific experiment, where they have counter-spinning electromagnetic fields that repel against each other and create gravity fluctuations, it doesn't seem that far off from what Bob Lazar was saying. So the question is, what was Bob Lazar encountering? Was it something spectacular, or was it something more mundane, like just a prototype of a technology that had yet to be developed? Now, one of my favorite things about this article is where it says here, sounds far-fetched? You're not alone. A primary patent examiner at the United States Patents and Trademark Office thought so too. But then the chief technology officer of the Naval Aviation Enterprise personally wrote a letter addressed to the examiner claiming that the US needs to patent, as the Chinese are already investing significantly in these aerospace technologies that sound eerily similar to UFOs reported by Navy pilots in now well-known encounters. This raises the question, are the Chinese developing or even already flying crafts leveraging similar advanced technology, and is the Navy now scrambling to catch up? Okay, very interesting. Look, what I'm seeing here is a shitload of disinformation. Now, I don't know what direction this shitstorm is coming from, but it certainly seems that there's no way all these things can be all coming out at the same time, and it's all just coincidence. Here's what I'm thinking. UFOs have been present for a while. UFOs can be related to all kinds of different phenomenons related to religious phenomenons. It can be attributed to sightings that happened way back in the 1600s. And there are weird structures like pyramids that are associated with godlike creatures, such as the dragons. If you look at the Mayan temples, I would say that Osiris, Horus, also kind of has this like scaly feel, kind of like Isis. Now, I know Egyptologists don't take the idea that the pyramids were built for the gods, but the kings were considered to be gods themselves. So when they say that they were built for the kings, for the pharaohs, I mean, there's definitely some wiggle room there. But certainly for the Mayans, these temples were built for their god Quetzalcoatl, which was a feathered serpent. Now, if you've been following this channel, we don't think it's a coincidence that there are feather serpents, pyramids, and then pyramids in our dollar bill. You know, we know that there are organizations like the Illuminati that came from Germanic-based secret societies. We know these secret societies survived and that essentially developed into other organizations like the Skull and Bones. We know that a lot of different members of our presidential cabinet, people who had massive positions of power in our society, came from the Skull and Bones. So then I see, so then to say that there's a pyramid in the back of a dollar bill, there's this weird reptilian theory, there's dragons all over the world, yet when you go to the Mayans, their pyramids are specifically dedicated to a dragon god. So I'll tell you this, when the Americans put the pyramids in that back of the dollar bill, they weren't thinking about the Mayans, that's for certain. So I got a little off track there. I have a feeling I lost some subscribers. They're like, yeah, this guy's
he's fairly intelligent. He's full of shit.
Kind of reminds me of that George Carlin joke. So the point with that rant is that UFOs have been spotted for a long time. And so when I see all these documents come out, when I see the Nimitz story come out, I mean, the thing is, these Nimitz stories of people seeing UFOs or this tic-tac UFOs, yeah, they're coming out right now, as this article is pointing out, but the stories have been around for decades. So why is it that all these stories that have been around for decades suddenly start pouring out, and then suddenly a new patent of how to make extraterrestrial vehicles just pops in? And I'm not saying this patent is not real. I'm just asking you to consider one possibility, and that is, could this be a form of a disinformation campaign? Essentially, that the patent has always been there, and it's only that now that people are catching up to the UFO phenomenon, because this UFO phenomenon is as old as human history. Now that people are starting to catch on to the zeitgeist, so to speak, maybe this release of documents is kind of like them releasing a part of their secret technologies that they've been trying to work on for a while, to kind of like mislead the people with a biscuit and to make people believe that, yes, this has always been part of the military technology, whereas really it was inspired by other technologies, has been developed for a long time, and only has been publicized now because people are kind of getting wind of the idea that there's way more to this life, way more to our history than us living in this isolated rock. Just aquatic monkeys who were never influenced except from our own stupid imaginations. And, to kind of echo the sentiment that I just talked about with this possible disinformation campaign, it says here, the bizarre saga of the U.S. Navy and its sudden willingness to admit that its personnel regularly encountered unidentified objects in the skies keep getting stranger. Why this sudden shift in policy? Right. Why the sudden shift in policy? What is the motivation for disclosing these encounters to the public? News outlets of all types have for months been discussing the matter, yet we still don't know exactly what is actually happening here. And perhaps that is the point. The point is that we're not supposed to know. And so when you can't keep the information shut, then let's put some disinformation out there. Let's confuse the hell out of the people. Because like I said before, we have documents from the CIA that proves that the CIA has been very interested in the subject since the 1950s, interested enough to actually corrupt what was supposed to be a scientific panel with their own personnel, establish their own. I mean, you don't do this if there's something that could be menacing or dangerous about this case. Obviously, they knew more than they wanted to lead on to the public. And once again, we're in a situation where it seems like the Navy has almost in a way given up a piece of their arsenal, a glimpse into their technology, but not because they're interested in giving us their technology, not because they want other people to know about it, but because they want people to stop thinking that these things are UFOs or aliens. Just a thought. Now, if you guys have been following our remote viewing section, it's been really interesting because we've had very few guesses, but I'm telling you, of every time I'm posting this remote viewing section, it seems like somebody is just getting it very close or 100% right. So I have the card back here, actually. It's been there the entire time. And, what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to give an answer that I think was very close to a winner. And I'm going to let you guys vote ahead if you think this is a hit or not. But I'm going to give the winner to JVC123. This guy, I'm telling you, he has been so huge for this channel. He essentially the moment that we first started getting censored by YouTube, it happened that our videos went from getting like 40 or 50 subscribers every time I published a video to getting negative subscribers. So it was like we're getting punished for publishing. Every time I would publish, the subscribers would go down, probably because the videos weren't being recommended to new people, other people. So it was only my own audience that was encountering, and if somebody didn't like a particular subject, they might have been like, screw it. But this guy, when that was all happening, he went ahead, he spread the word in social media and brought in like 200, I don't know how many subscribers. And since then, the channel has always been a positive trend. So I can't thank enough for all the support he has given. He also gave some very compelling evidence regarding Atlantis that I never published. And he discovered these pre-Islamic tombs around the Riqat structure that seem to have consistency with the other pre-Islamic tombs that run all the way up to Egypt. So it seems that whatever culture might have been in the desert prior to the Nubians, or whatever culture was there pre-Islamic, it could have been a culture that was prevalent throughout the whole Sahara desert region. So, okay, I'm talking too much here. Let's just go ahead and open this envelope. And that is our remote viewing. As you can see, we did put the code in the back of the picture. And JVC123, he thought it looked like stones, little lines, he said. And, to say that it was lines, smooth stones, I think it's very close. Now, he didn't get the dog paw right. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you guys, do you think this is a hit or not? So I'm going to go ahead and put a new card for you guys. Something else I want to mention that was really interesting, and this has a little bit to do with remote viewing. My neighbor came over, who is an entertainment lawyer. He was watching my episode, and he got really interested in this remote viewing section. And then he asked me a funny question. He goes, do you know somebody named Russell Tarr? And I go, what? I mean, I don't know him, but I know of him. And it appears that he had worked with Russell Tarr on many occasions, and just thought that was a really interesting coincidence that, my neighbor, he's actually one of our very good friends, happens to know Russell Tarr. So maybe we can get in contact. We'll see. I will try to, I would love to have an interview, for example, with him. But that is the episode for today. I'm going to go ahead and leave a new card for you guys for remote viewing. And then for JVC123, I have not gotten in contact with him. So I'm going to go ahead and plug anything that, whatever it is that he would like for the next episode. And once again, thank you so much for joining me. This is Felipe Osorio, signing out.